This video shows how to connect the 4-switch universal wiring harness control to the Blue Diamond high flow cold planer. As it comes, the cold planer has a cover over the solenoids with a switch on the front that allows for either the tilt or the side shift to be controlled. But the 4 switches on the new wiring harness allow for both to be controlled from within the cab. So the first thing we will do is disconnect that switch. There are 3 components to the wiring harness. The first has the control box. To control, each switch is labeled. There's the left up and down, the right depth up and down, side shift left and right, and tilt left and right. There's a 14-pin connector to go to the second component of the wire harness, and a 2-pin flat connector to go to the skid steer power. The second component adapts from the 14-pin harness on the control box component to 8 Deutsch connectors to plug into the solenoids. And the third component adapts from the 2-pin flat connector to the 12-volt plug to go into the skid steer. The first step is to remove the 2 bolts that hold the cover on. There is one on the front and one on the side. Next, we'll remove the cover. You can see the switch wires going to the solenoids. So we'll unplug each connector. And set this to the side. Next step, we will take the 160457 harness that goes from the 14-pin to the connectors. It has a dark green and a light green wire, a dark blue and a light blue, a dark brown and a light brown, and a white and a gray. The dark green connector plugs into the lower coil of the lower front solenoid. The light green connector plugs into the upper coil. The dark blue connector plugs into the lower coil of the lower rear solenoid. The light blue connector plugs into the upper coil. The dark brown connector plugs into the lower coil of the upper rear solenoid. The light brown plugs into the upper coil. The white connector plugs into the lower coil of the upper front solenoid. And the gray wire plugs into the upper coil. The next step is to slide the wire harness into the grommet and the slot on the side of the cover. Rotate the grommet to lock it in and reinstall the cover. The next step is to thread the wiring harness through the hose saver loop and into the skid steer. Then connect it to the 14-pin wire harness. Take the 160456 harness flat plug, connect it to the adapter harness 160458, and plug the 12-volt into the plug on the skid steer. Then connect the controller to the skid steer with the magnet on the back. To lower the left side of the planer, press the left depth switch down. It is the far left switch on the controller. To raise it, lift it up. This will lower the depth skid back to its home position. To raise the right side depth skid, push the second from left button down. and lower it again by pressing it up. Side shift to the right by pressing the side shift switch down is third from left on the controller. To side shift left, lift the depth switch trigger, or lift the switch, and it will go to the left. To tilt to the right, lift the tilt switch, to tilt to the left, push the depth switch down.